Hey guys, Raul here with another episode of Cold Emails Hot Takes. I'm here with Liam. Liam has been behind the scenes helping instantly grow as fast as it has with flows, with funnels, with all sort of different stuff that nobody knows in the background. And he has his own agency. Has pivoted that quite a lot. And I'm super excited to walk through his journey, what he learned, and how he also helped with cold email and everything along the way. So thanks, Liam. Thanks for being on.
Cool, man. Thanks for the invite. Happy to
Of
discuss
course.
all of this.
Yeah, man. And I have some notes, but I'm trying to keep it quite loose because you're one of the few guests that we have on that I actually know. So I'm going to take it a little bit more chiller. So don't worry. And I think the best way to start is, can you give a quick overview of your journey, of your agency, how you pivoted, how you've grown to what you have now, and what's that main offer that you're selling right now?
Got it. Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, I have pivoted a couple of times. So, the agency is actually a year old next month. And initially, I provided email marketing for ecom brands. And the reason I did that is I joined Utopia, with a ecom shout out.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed like the path of least resistance. Like there was a lot of resources in there about ecom, email marketing specifically. And I had an ecom brand with my friend at the same time, and so it just seemed like logical. But I quickly realized it wasn't for me. Like I enjoyed it; it was a good experience, but there's kind of like a ceiling to how much you can charge in that area. I feel like, and just e-commerce as a whole, it's not very profitable, and so these companies aren't really cash rich. And as a service provider, when things start going wrong, you're the first one to go. And so these sort of red flags started to appear. I think I had two clients that delayed the payment of invoices to me, and I was like, hold on, I need to rethink this. And I kind of had this aha moment, right? I've worked in SaaS for years. I've worked at startups, at big companies, and I kind of had this moment where I was like, wait, what am I doing? Why don't I just lean into this unfair advantage? Why don't I just keep doing what I did in SaaS? And this was at a time where people were discussing SaaS agencies like it was like the golden opportunity. And I was like, what are those guys on about? I didn't really see the big deal. But then after working with these ecom brands and realizing, they're strapped for cash all the time, and I know how cash rich SaaS companies are, high profitability. There's always going to be a need for software. And so I pivoted to SaaS, which is when I started first working with you guys. But the issue with that is I kind of offered everything. I was basically a glorified consultant. I helped out with retention, I helped out with conversions, and kind of everything and anything in between. I was just really leaning into my past experience. But the issue with that is, it's good if you want to remain a freelancer, but it's not very scalable. For example, retention is very hard to scale. It's a very niche area. And it's also a company problem. So as a service provider, it's very hard to have a big impact on it. And so then from there, I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I was like, okay, what aligns with the skills I have? What's always in demand? What are people always willing to pay money for? And also what's scalable? What can I turn into an actual business rather than just being this basically, I left the 9 to 5 to just basically be a glorified freelancer. And so I kind of landed on acquisition, right? Companies always want new customers. That's never going to go away. Companies always want to make more money. And acquisition, it's very repeatable, right? You can build these systems, and they just sort of work around the clock. So that's what we're currently doing now. So basically what we do is we build and optimize sales funnels for exclusively B2B SaaS companies. So we come in, we either optimize what they already have, or we build their funnels from scratch. So they can just get a bit more predictability when it comes to user acquisition.
Love that. And I think for all the people with agencies starting out, it's a pretty much like the main way how you get successful. It's like you start with one thing, you notice it's not working, and then you go back to the stuff that you actually know, which you should have been like doing in the first place. But a lot of people like try to find these cool ideas, and then again, like you started the SaaS, you did everything, and you found something that people always need. You can package it nicely. So everybody that's starting out, you don't need to have the final idea straight away. Just like start reaching out. In the beginning, it's actually good to do everything. You learn about it, you find the things that actually make an impact, and then you make a business out of it. But the main thing is like you don't stop. And then I remember you messaged me on Twitter, like DM'd me. That's like how you closed us. Twitter TM, and then we jumped on the call. You closed us. But what other channels did you use in the beginning to get your first clients? Was it only Twitter, email? How did you do it?
Yeah, so I guess I've tried most of them, right? Like ultimately at a high level, there's outbound and inbound, right? Inbound is a long-term play, and that's like, organic social, like YouTube, your Twitter, posting on there, like building your personal brand. But I've definitely relied mostly on outbound, because outbound, there's like a quick feedback loop, right? You either get results or you don't. And so Twitter was one of them. Yeah, I remember that DM. I did a bunch of those. I'd say LinkedIn outreach, although not a massive fan of LinkedIn outreach. It's just quite corporate and I don't know, transactional. And then cold email. So cold email like was and continues to be like the biggest growth channel for us. Like I used to be an SDR when like one of my roles in SaaS was as an SDR. So I'm very familiar with just like, ripping cold emails. I haven't got back into the game of cold calling. Maybe I should do that. But yeah, it's just like, it just works. Like, people spend most of their day in their inbox. And so it's just the best way to grab someone's attention. And so we have those systems in place and they just work like clockwork.
Nice. And what are you seeing like when you started to now? What have been like the biggest improvements in terms of like emails? Are you using like a different host, sequences, some stuff that you wish you would have known earlier?
Wow, good question. So, I mean, I think so. My personal opinion, I'm not like a cold email activist. Like it works for me and it's a really good acquisition channel, but I try to keep it simple. Like I think what it really boils down to, and you can use all these different tactics and strategies and stuff like that, but I think ultimately what it boils down to is, number one, you need to know your target audience. Like you cannot create unique positioning, you cannot create a good offer if you don't know who you're targeting, if you don't know who you're selling to. And so I think it all starts with that. And like from working in SaaS, working, side by side with founders, with marketing managers, all the people I target now, right? I got a real understanding of their problems, their challenges, their desires, but most importantly, like the language they speak in, right? Because I think some people, when they target these companies, they're using all these like buzzwords and jargon. It's like, bro, like you just sound so out of place. So I think it all starts with that. You can have the best sequence in the world, but if you're not, if your messaging doesn't relate to them, and if you're not tapping into those I guess those critical pain points and desires, then it's just not going to work. So I think it all starts with that. And then just always, so like I pivoted my agency, I'm always iterating my offer, and that doesnn't necessarily mean like creating a new offer, but definitely like having those feedback loops in place, like looking at your metrics, looking at the performance, like what's working, what's not, and then like just doing more of what's working. And I think some people get trapped by the word offer, right? They think an offer means buy in my product, buy in my service. But I think really an offer, all that an offer is something you give to people in return for their time or money. And so as a business, you can have multiple offers, and that could just be, hey, I'd like to offer you a personalized loom, right? That's an offer. Mm-hmm. Hey, I put together a case study of what we did with company X. Would you like to take a look? That's an offer. And it's just about making that irresistible, right? Like you don't send an email to someone like, hey, can I send you a loom? You're targeting a pain point. So they go, wow, okay, this is free value. It's a no-brainer. Yes, there's nothing to lose. Let me take a look. And then that's when you hook them. So I think my offer's always changing. Like value-based offers always win for me, offering that loom audit, offering like a value-based sales letter. So, to them, it looks like free value, but really, it's a sales asset. You're trying to convert them. That always works better than me than like hard call to actions like, hey, would you like to hop on a call? And then I think other than that, it's probably I think like a big underrated needle mover when it comes to cold outreach is your personal brand. Like we talk a lot about funnels, and people always get in the mindset like, oh, funnel is a VSL, it's a sales letter and all this kind of stuff. But like you, as the business owner, you are like a key part of that funnel as well. And so before anyone is going to give you their money, they're going to research you. They're going to look at you. They're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. They're going to look at your Twitter profile. They're going to look at your YouTube channel. And it's really important that you position yourself as like an authority. So you know what you're talking about. You're likable. So you're not like saying wild stuff because that's just going to be an instant turn off. And I think it's just you know what you're talking about. I think that's a really key part as well. So that's something I try focus on a lot is you know, whether you go on my LinkedIn profile, Twitter profile, you know what I do right away. And if you look at my tweets, you know the topics I talk about. So I think that's like a massive thing. I think those are like the key pillars, right? And then the really sort of tactical stuff, like, you know, I don't know, following up with emojis and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it moves the needle, but I think those sort of three things are the biggest needle movers.
Yeah, agree. And it's funny. I did a podcast last week with Rayo, another Instantly co-founder. And after the podcast, I was like, fuck, we should talk more about like the offer. Like we talked about the nitty-gritty, like the stall stuff, but 100% agree. Like if your offer sucks, like it's super hard to make it work. You can like wrap it up nicely. It's not going to work. And same if you're an agency and you take on new clients and the clients don't have a website, they don't have that website presence, nice LinkedIn, YouTube channel, it's so much harder to sell them as well. So it's like for you and also the clients that you pick. And you mentioned now you're pivoting to SaaS, like targeting SaaS founders. What kind of lead source are you using? You don't have to reveal any secrets if you have something, but like the main stuff, somebody wants to target SaaS, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So again, I think this is another area you can get just so you can just procrastinate on. You can waste so much time. Like I know the majority of people go to Apollo. I don't touch that. So for me, the best approach to finding leads is, first of all, you find the companies you want to work with. So for me, it'd be SaaS companies of a certain size in a certain location. You can even go a layer deeper than that. Perhaps they're SaaS companies within certain verticals. And so I find those companies, and there's various databases you can do that, right? So like Crunchbase is really good for SaaS companies. And then I upload those companies to LinkedIn. I exclusively use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then I find the people who work at those companies. And why that's so much better than just using Apollo or whatever is the filtering. Like if I go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator or I go to Apollo and I try to find SaaS companies, I think one of the filters is like, well, there isn't a filter for SaaS. I don't think there's like a software development.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you get so many trash leads in there. It could be a web development agency. It could be anyone in there. Whereas if you go for the accounts first, you know they are SaaS companies, like, you know, with 100% confidence. And then you go find the people at those companies. And it just means you're spending less time in spreadsheets, deleting rows and qualifying your leads, which means then you get to spend more time on actually, you know, doing the stuff that gets money. So yeah, that's what I do.
Perfect. And agree again, agree, like don't get like bogged down of all the options. Just like select one. It can be a poll, it can be whatever you like doing. Just like start sending those emails and then start looking at like new lead sources all the time, because like lead sources as well are super underrated. If you can find a guy that can like custom scrape you some, like let's say B2B lead databases that are not available in Apollo, and you're going to have a huge advantage. Like I did this in my sales job. I was the first one there that used Crunchbase, used the guide to like scrape those leads, and they're like so fresh, like nobody had hit them up. And I got like a bunch of meetings. I think I got like 80 meetings from those. So it definitely works. And
Nice.
so you have like your offer now, you have the agency offer working nicely, you have the outbound going, you got leads coming in. How are you guys dealing with the sales process? Are you jumping on the calls? How does it work to get the client on board?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm the sales rep, and I feel like that's probably the last thing I will ever delegate. Just because, you know, there's no one more passionate, driven, and believable than the founder, right? So it's just, yeah, hopping on a call. I think once you start to get to the higher ticket end of the scale, you know, I'd say above like 5K a month, 10K a month plus, sales process starts to definitely get a bit more complicated, because the larger companies you work with, you know, as the company gets bigger, the founder is less involved in the sales process. And so that means you're not really speaking to the founder anymore. You're speaking to, you know, C-level execs, you're speaking to directors, managers, who are far more, they're emotional buyers, because, you know, their job is on the line. You know, they want to get that promotion. And so it becomes a bit more complex. There's more loopholes to jump through. And there's obviously the sales process just becomes longer because now more people are involved in the buying process. So yeah, I still run all that. It's something I'm still learning. Like, you know, I never sold enterprise where you have these typically longer sales cycles. So I think having like a robust sales process is like, man, so important. Like, you have to be able to justify that ROI. Like, so I put models together where I run the numbers through and we walk through the process. You've got to clearly outline the deliverables, exactly what they're going to get. And especially if you're working with like managers, directors, who a lot of them don't have authority to, like, you know, make the purchase. They'll definitely be the champion in the buying process, but ultimately the decision will be left with someone else. You have to kind of you have to help them make that proposal internally. You know, there's, again, nobody's going to sell my service better than I, and so should I be resting my fate on you know, in their hands? No, you shouldn't. So you really need to be guiding them through that buying process, like arming them with as much information as possible, so when they do build that case internally, you know, the logic is already there. It's just a case of, like, you know, signing it off, rather than the back and forth.
Gotcha. And I think another like underestimated part is, and what I feel like you have been doing really well with Instantly, is after you onboard a client, like the communication, making them sure they understand like what's working, what's going on. So how do you do that? Like, I'm a client, I jump on board, like what happens next in your agency?
Yeah, well, I think just the topic of communication is like really important to me. I'm just client obsessed. Like when I worked in SaaS, again, I built like the customer success team, and it's all about relationship building, and it's all about like putting the customer first. So that's something like I pride myself in. But I mean, well, they get onboarded, you know, we have a kickoff call. I think what's really important there for like the junior agency owners is like set the expectations. Like you want to leave as minimal room as possible for like assumptions and guesses. You really want to outline like what's going to be delivered, when it's going to be delivered, what you need from them for that to be delivered, you know, like a review process and stuff like that. And then beyond that, it's really just like over communicating. So I know different companies like to operate different ways. I like to have a weekly catch-ups, like as a minimum with my clients, and then they'll probably hear from me like during the week on Slack as well, like one-on-one communication. And I like to keep it very informal. I'm very picky with who we work with, and most people who we work with are very like sound, they're chilled, they're not very corporate. It's very conversational. So I communicate with them all the time. And I think it's just about being clear of your intentions. If something's gone wrong, be clear about it, you know, come up with a plan of how to fix that. And again, when things are going right, communicate that as well, because we're also busy, especially business owners. You know, you probably work with multiple consultants or agencies, you have a large team. And so you don't have enough time to get deep into everything. And so as an agency owner or a service-based business owner, just always like summarize, keep things succinct, and let them know what's going on behind the scenes.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Like we did the opposite in our agency, and it like fucked us a little bit. Like we wanted to get rid of the customer communication. We want to more like scale, grow big, and how can we take ourselves out of it? But we still had that like human component, but it was like on a calendar basis. Like they could book a call. We didn't have it, like, but we should have done. Like it would have made our life much easier. So in the beginning, 100% recommended. As you scale, like you can have somebody else do it. But I chose like I'm not going to do like a full Nathan Latka going in deep with the numbers, but in terms of your like yearly goals, where do you want to be like ideally at the end of this year? Do you have a goal in mind?
Yeah, so want to hit and exceed a 6-figure MRR, which we're well on track to do, and I think I'm really confident we'll do. And it's just about like what gets us to there, the team, like having those sales systems in place. But I guess a bit beyond that, like I genuinely want to be when companies, SaaS companies think of, okay, we've, our advertising costs are so high, like we can't acquire customers profitably, like we don't know what to do. I really want to be the company that they think of, or somebody refers them to. So want to be one of the like leading agencies in Europe for SaaS sales funnels, and that's kind of like the long-term vision.
Nice. And then I think like with the Instantly case study and like all the other ones, I think it's gonna work pretty well. How many team members do you have right now? How big is the agency?
4 full-time plus me. And most of that's happened this year. Like it's been I kind of, like I said, I was this glorified consultant freelancer, and I got to a stage where things were well, like I'm earning more money than I've ever earned in my life. But there becomes a stage where like to break past that, you need to have team members. And I think also just there becomes a breaking point where maybe the service quality starts to drop just because of your workload. And I think you need people in your corner, in your side. But yeah, I think the team, I mean, it will be growing beyond that as well to help us hit that goal.
Nice. And so like in every agency, every business is like some bottlenecks is like acquisition, operations. What do you say like right now are the like biggest bottlenecks that you're trying to solve, that you like are working day to day to fix?
Yeah, I think they never stop. Because I think in agencies you have these like it's this wave, right? Like, oh, we've got so many customers, things are going well. Oh shit, we can't deal with all those customers. We need to like fix our fulfillment. And it's always like that. So I think fortunately, I feel like we're in a position where I've put these sales systems in place that I can kind of turn this tap on and off when we like need more leads or we need more pipeline. But I'll never say no to more. But it's always operations. It's always thinking like, how do we fulfill on this demand? And something that's really, really important to me is like service quality. Like I don't want just a team of generalists so I can boost my profit margins. Like everyone on my team is an expert within their given area, like whether it be copywriting, whether it be design, whether it be performance marketing. And so it's always about like just who can I bring on that's gonna maintain that standard? How do we train them? How do we upskill them? And how do we make sure everything's like flowing smoothly? Because you used to be an agency owner, and sometimes it feels like everything's on fire all the time. And yeah, just trying to reduce that. So it's definitely, I think, operations. Marketing and sales is the fun part, right? Like we all love selling, we all love, because it's our vision, right? But it's the operations which kind of glues that all together, and I think it's the most important part.
Good. Makes sense. And I think this is like a good way to end it. We know your goal, we know where we want to get to. So all the people listening, if they want to reach out to you on Twitter, the website, where can they do that?
Yeah, sure. So the website is digiseed.co, digiseed.co. On Twitter, I think I'm Dunne, DUNNE _ I really need to change that. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, shoot me a DM, like always happy to talk about SaaS. Love it.
Perfect. And I'm gonna add links below so you can get easy access. Thank you so much, Liam, and hope you hit your 6-figure MRR this year.
Cheers, man. All the best. Bye.
Thanks.